Thank you for joining us today, gentlemen. We're here today to discuss the challenges of sustaining the joint force against a near-peer competitor. The problem of how to get our forces what they need to meet the wartime demand is not new. History provides countless examples of how the Department of Defense was able to ramp up supply to meet surging wartime demand, but it also shows what happens when those demands fail to be met. These lessons from the past will help us address how we approach some of our current challenges. Namely, how will we ensure that the Joint Force has the energy resources required to accomplish their current and future mission? Supplying forces with their energy requirements requires both fuel and the capacity to move it across vast distances. This has always been a challenging prospect because it is resource intensive. It requires both fuel and the transportation needed to move it. But it becomes even more challenging during the instances of near-peer conflict. Both the European and Pacific theaters in World War II offer countless examples of how logistics and supply lines impact operations. One is to remember General Patton, who, when on the offense and short of fuel, said, "Give me 400,000 gallons of gasoline and I'll put you inside Germany in 2 days. But because he could not be resupplied, the United States lost the initiative and the war dragged on. German U-boats prioritized sinking oil tankers because they understood it was easier to sink a tanker than a warship, with a similar deleterious result on the war effort. Likewise, commanders in the Pacific were continually concerned about keeping their best warships fueled and ready to engage the enemy. We could talk about Guadalcanal and the removal of the aircraft carriers in that regard. As it has been in the past conflicts, in a future fight, a near-peer adversary will certainly try to constrain our ability to provide fuel to the forces. And the Department of Defense uses a lot of fuel. It is, in fact, the largest single consumer of petroleum products in the world. In fiscal year 2017, the Department of Defense consumed over 85 million barrels of fuel to power ships, aircraft, combat vehicles, and contingency bases at a cost of nearly $8.2 billion. Such expansive requirements invite risk, both to the service members on the front line who need the fuel and those who are charged with providing it. Because of this risk and the certainty that an adversary will seek to constrain supply, we must look to the other side of the equation, demand. Reducing the energy demands of our armed forces must be as much a part of our strategy for meeting contested logistics challenges as ensuring that we have fuel and the transport for the supply side of the equation. We must learn the lessons of history and couple them with modern innovation to reduce the demand of our weapons systems. While peacetime demand reduction is often dismissed as unnecessary, environmentally motivated greening of the military, but a reduction of demand is mission critical in a contested fight because decreasing demand increases joint forces lethality. If we become more fuel efficiency, then we can increase range and maneuverability and decrease cost, which then can then be invested elsewhere to increase overall readiness. Today, we have the technologies, including electrification, hydrogen fuel cell technologies, and fuel efficiency measures that were unimaginable in the conflicts of the past. But to integrate the right technologies into our strategy, we must overcome the Pentagon's stovepiping that may make this difficult, if not impossible. The military departments must take a holistic approach: research, acquisition, requirement development, and war plan creation. Today's witnesses are our military's logistic leaders, as well as the department's operational energy personnel. They must be engaged and included in this discussion. This collaboration, while often missing in the past, is necessary to lower demand so that the Department of Defense is lethal in a contested environment. While today's witnesses do not have all the answers, they have many. They are uniquely positioned to understand both the operational warfighting requirements the wargaming results, and the challenge of supplying a force in a contested environment. I will remind the members of the subcommittee that as this is an open forum, there may be many times in our discussion when we can only talk in generalities. We will, however, have follow-up meetings, and we will go into detail on these issues.